Greetings and welcome to LGR Oddware, where we're taking a look at hardware and software that is odd, forgotten, and obsolete. And it faces this way. This is the Cooler Master Musketeer 3, the third one. And this one is the most interesting of them all, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a valve vacuum tube audio thing that goes in a 5 1/4 inch drive bay of your computer, and it's supposed to color the sound, filter it, give it some character of some kind, and just look awesome, I guess. So let's take a closer look. All right, finally. I've been after this thing for so long. The Cooler Master Musketeer 3 Audio Function Panel. This is the model RF-5AD-SAS1 for this silver faceplate version anyway, and it is a valve/vacuum tube pass-through device and a 5 1/4 inch drive bay form factor with a VU meter and a volume slider and headphone output, and that's about it. This is not really an amplifier despite the valve vacuum tube appearance. From what I've read, it actually is prone to lowering the volume a good bit. So it's not an alternative to external tube amplifiers like this one I have here. In fact, it relies very much on your sound card amplification, so it needs to be plugged into the stereo or speaker output and not line out. To that effect, Cooler Master did not market this as an amplifier. They actually called it a sound quality controller that filters the accurate digital signal of sound to a much more harmonic output in a classical way, quote unquote. So as with so many tube-related audio devices, it's said to add more warmth and saturated fullness, and you get that clipping effect where it's a more pleasing analog distortion. I don't know, I'm honestly not that picky about this kind of thing. I just think it looks neat. Tubes are cool. I just want to try it out regardless of how it makes things sound. And thankfully you didn't have to pay a whole ton for it in 2005. Suggested retail price was $50 for this one back when it released, similar to other Cooler Master drive bay offerings. And of course, this being the Musketeer 3, it is the third in that line, and it started with the original Musketeer in 2003 and the Musketeer 2 in 2004, the latter of which I've covered previously on Oddware, so see that video if you're curious. But as for the Musketeer 3 here, I actually was not aware of this thing's existence at all until reading the comments on my Thermaltake Circlefire video, and I just was immediately enamored with the way that the M3 looks. And I've been looking for one of these ever since. It's rare, it's expensive, and for a long time there were a bunch of just shady, sketchy looking sellers putting them up for $400 or $500 just with repeat listings, all from the same person but under different usernames it appeared. I don't know. They always declined my offers anyway anytime I put in a best offer for a more reasonable price. Well, I finally sourced this one for quite a bit less from Europe, and yeah, here it is. And the M3 is actually not the only vacuum tube computer-related thing I'm on the lookout for. There's also the AOPEN AX4B533 tube motherboard, a special edition of that thing. It came with a tube, of course, and transformers that affected both audio output and input, so playback and recording alike, and that actually came with a 6922 or ECC88 tube. A bit of a different thing than what we've got in the Musketeer 3, I think. Of course, what exactly is in here? Well, I guess we'll just have to open it up and find out, so let's unbox. Yeah, all right, so our PCI bracket and cables and things, and manual, not much else. As expected, really. And it's just an audio pass-through thing, very much like the Musketeer 2 and other such devices I've covered, so don't expect too many surprises in terms of setting it up, but it's certainly a special thing. This is my first time actually opening this up. And there we go. Look at that. That is wonderfully eye-catching. Feels like a insulation type of material on the bottom there. In terms of the tube itself, well, it's got these mirrored surfaces all around, looking all fancy. Just this metallic enclosure seems to be plastic though, not actually metal, just a metallic finish. But yeah, from what I can tell and just looking things up online, what we have in here is a 12AU7, also known as the ECC82. That's a medium gain dual triode vacuum tube, a relatively popular choice. A lot of hi-fi preamps for being low noise, for line amplification and driving and phase inverter and tube stuff. So yeah, a tube that you can still get today if you ever needed to replace it. Although it looks like actually getting in there to replace it would be quite a thing, or maybe not. It does have these 4 little screws on the front there. Looks like you could maybe take the faceplate off that way and then get to that whole tube assembly, or I don't know, you might just have to take the whole thing apart, because look at all this. You got all this kind of stuff here connected to the tube board. Version 4.0. Otherwise, yeah, not a whole lot going on. You got your standard VU meter stuff right there and your circuitry for all your audio related things, very much like the other Musketeers. And of course we do have a power transformer situation going on here. I mean, you're gonna need that for a vacuum tube if it's actually gonna be doing anything, because we're only getting 12 volts in, and this takes it up to 300 volts. And there is only one of those because this is, I mean, there's only output. It's not going to touch your recordings. That part of all the audio remains untouched and still goes through your normal sound card without any tubes. And of course it is just stereo as well, which is where all this comes in. So if you had a surround setup, well, you're out of luck. Unless you get like, ooh, man, 3 or 4 Musketeers. That'd be interesting. Anyway, I got some screws there for mounting that in place. Have a pass-through cable, just stereo 3.5 mil. And then, yeah, it's just your regular old pass-through bracket. Nothing special going on there at all. So takes a stereo out from your sound card, and then that will go into, should be right here. And then that in is going to go to the input of the Musketeer, and then out from that to the out of here, and then you just plug in your speakers there. So it's literally just passing all of your audio through this entire drive bay thing, and it's pretty simple, which also means that if you want to go back and forth with and without, there's no way to do that. There's no bypass or anything, so, and that feels really cheap. Anyway, headphone out, or you can just use your speakers. So, all right, let's get this all set up inside of the Megalumina Monster. Goes from the sound card into the Musketeer 3, and then the Musketeer 3 out goes to our speakers. And of course we have the headphone output up front. And there we go. That is quite the look on this very metal case. It's not the same exact kind of brushed metal, but you know, it looks pretty awesome. It's gonna look even more awesome once we get it plugged in, so let's do that. Hey, oh yeah, that looks awesome. So it looks like what I read was correct. The old reviews actually said that you're not gonna see any glowing directly from the tube itself, but there is a light in there illuminating that, just giving it a kind of amber hue. Of course, this has its own light as well. But yeah, we plug in the rest of the computer and we'll test the sucker out and see how warm it actually is. Oh my. Whoa. We got some demon sounds. did not expect that. That doesn't sound good, but it sounds awesome. There's still weird signals coming through. Anyway, it does seem to be warming up, so to speak. Yeah, it's definitely sounding a lot less noisy. Although, yeah, there's no sound. But you can see the VU meter just bouncing around there anytime something happens on screen. Yeah, kind of responsive. It's not the sound. It's some kind of interference for just the computer itself. It's like a faint little popping noise. Let me see if you can hear this. You know, if I have to have the speaker going full blast to be able to hear that at all. So you're not going to hear that normally, but this is sensitive enough that it just picks up everything. I didn't notice if there was a pot in there to adjust that internally. There's obviously nothing external, but yeah, wow. All right, just curious. I've got it turned off for a bit here now to let the whole thing cool down. I just want to see what kind of sounds we get. Yeah, you seem to get that every time. Whatever the case, it just makes some funky noise, especially when you first power it on. It makes me wonder if it's the transformer doing its thing, kicking in, bringing it up to 300 volts or what, but it's not something I hear on my other tube audio devices. Yeah, they just power on, it's fine. So we're just gonna work with it. Now, the first thing I want to test really quick is just the difference between the normal sound card on its own versus the Cooler Master, and if there's any volume difference, because all these reviews kept saying that there was. So here's the ding from Windows on each at the exact same volume settings. Yeah, so there is a difference. It's like 1 decibel lower with the Cooler Master Musketeer 3, but that's about it. It's negligible, not as big a deal as I expected from the old reviews, but that's a good thing, I guess. And yet it's still doing the dancing VU meter here with just the screensaver going. It really does move around no matter what you do. What a bizarre little thing. All right, let's do a couple of audio tests. We'll do some direct capture here, direct recording of the audio. Just get a CD. And yeah, let's see if it indeed filters the accurate digital sound to a much more harmonic output in a classical way, as they said it would. So here's the thing. There is a difference, but it's slight. It's so subtle that I find myself questioning what exactly the point of all this was. The Musketeer's audio sounds a bit less crisp, a little less bassy, sounding overall softer and slightly more centered towards the middle, like there's less stereo separation. In other words, I think it sounds worse. Is this warm audio or more harmonic classical output, as Cooler Master put it? I don't know, man. I'm admittedly no audiophile. My ear holes aren't made out of the finest platinum or whatever, but to my hearing, it sounds slightly worse than the unfiltered sound card on the music I've played. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of variables there, but And perhaps this slight analog degradation is the whole idea, but for me, regardless which speakers I used or headphones I plugged in, I struggle to find anything making the M3 worthwhile, the audio-wise at least. visually, that's a whole nother story. Like 90% of the reason I own any tube devices at all is because I think they look awesome. And hey, in that respect, the Musketeer is still a win. Even with the cheap volume slider and VU meter that really isn't that helpful, it just looks sweet. And the difference in fidelity is so negligible, I don't really care how it sounds. But yeah, it's just the music side of things after all. For the true test of any vacuum tube audio device, Quake 3. That sounds so much better with that analog warmth. I mean, obviously, if you got this installed in a computer, you're gonna do more than just listen to music. I mean, I would. Gotta play some games, man. I can hear myself dying in such a smooth warmth that I've never felt before. Such analog quality. There we go. Totally all due to the Cooler Master Musketeer 3. Musketeer 3, Quake 3, you know, there's a relation, I'm sure. Alright, so, you know, I don't really know what exact use there is for this, but I just like the fact that it's there. I mean, it's just cool. It's just cool. Yeah, I guess that's about it for the Cooler Master Musketeer 3. A fascinating bit of oddware for sure. I like the way it looks. Don't really care about the sound. I mean, it doesn't do enough to make it worthwhile to pump all your audio through it. And you know, like if it was even more of a filter, I think that would actually be kind of cool. Like if it made it sound even worse, then there could be some real utility there for, I don't know, creating music and giving something a bit of analog warmth, whatever you want to call it, saturation, just that sort of feel to it. But it's so minuscule what it does that it hardly seems worth it. I also did want to mention that I had this thing going for 4 days now. Yeah, almost 5 days, just powered on straight to just get it broken in, sort of, you know, fully warmed up to make sure that it sounded as good as, I don't know, I can do within a time frame of getting a video done. And while that definitely helped the noise level, like it's pretty much on par. It's not making it any noisier like the bottom level of sound than just the sound card is. It didn't really change the results of anything. Like, you know, I could do more advanced testing and, you know, A/B comparison stuff, but anything that I've tried, it's so minimal that really it's only going to be showing up if you're looking at graphs. That's not really interesting to me. This, being in a computer, really the only function it's serving is looking kind of awesome. So I'm definitely going to be putting this in a future project, hopefully not too far off in the future. But like, yeah, just having it in the Megalumina Monster, there's not much reason for it. It just sounds a little bit worse, and, you know, it's it's so minimal that I kind of forget it's even there until I look at the computer case, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty neat. And that's it, you know? That's some good oddware right there, I think. So, I hope that you enjoyed seeing it. And if you did dig this episode of LGR Oddware, then do check out some of the other things I've covered. A bunch of drive bay devices, and certainly more of those coming in the future, as well as all sorts of other retro goodies. It's what I do here on LGR. And as always, thanks for watching.